This is the I Hate Football podcast. What's going on, guys? I am your host, Q, and tonight we got part 2 of the State of the King series that I'm doing. It's a 4-part series, that I'm doing, looking at, the 2025 Canes, recapping kind of what went on, different position groups, offense, defense, that kind of thing, and it's kind of breaking everything down, and looking forward to 2026. What's on the horizon, what we're looking forward to in terms of who's coming in terms of the transfer portal, young guys kind of trying to establish themselves, obviously a new quarterback and everything like that. And to help me do that, I got 2 buddies of mine, 2 guys that I've done plenty of pod stuff with. First one is my boy Will from the 305 Sports Now podcast. What's going on, homie?
Nothing much, man. I'm 100%, bro. Last week I was like on NyQuil.
And so before we get into that, I'm gonna bring on my boy AD from the Rainy Day podcast. Adrian, what's going on, buddy?
What's happening?
So Will call it. So Adrian called it your flu game. That was the flu game for you, like MJ.
I did.
That was your flu game right there.
And
thanks, man. Appreciate it.
1979 headboard that you were. Where was that bed from, bro? Was that a couch or a bed?
All right, so
that was a very different setup.
So if any of my in-laws, brother, I get it, man. But if any of my wife's family members are watching, I plead the fifth, and I will not comment on that before I intro.
Trying to keep the peace at home, right? Trying to keep the peace at home.
Yeah.
Like, bro, when you came on the background, I was like, oh wow, that's a little different than when these.
I ain't seen one of those in a while. That's what I said.
You're taking it back. You're taking it back with the headboard. Bro.
That with the Chinese eyes.
Yeah. Bro, you look medicated,
I was. Man, I really was.
Hey, my boy gutted it out. Was out there playing hurt, man. But but he made it happen. Glad to have AD back on. He had a little family thing going on. Nothing too crazy, but had to step out and help mom with something. So glad that we got him back this week.
Yep, mom's okay. Got AAA, but brother called me coming from the casino.
Yeah, triple AD is what she's got. She got triple AD.
Exactly. I said, did you make enough money to pay me for these services right here? Man, all good.
Break me off, mom. Break me off from that casino.
That's life. Glad to be back, man. Y'all boys killed it last week, and man, ready to talk some offense for sure.
Yeah, man. We gonna talk about get into this 25 offense, man, and it was an offense that I think it was weird, man. I think when we look at where the team went, right, a team that went 13-3, right, made the college football title game. But I think it was the defense, right, that kind of carried the team, right? And it's, again, I keep going back to that word. It was a little bit weird because I think when they weren't getting a lot of credit for what they were doing, right? And I think early on in the season, they obviously Carson Beck not having played, not having been available during the spring and everything like that, kind of caused the offense to kind of get off to a little bit shaky start, right? But overall, again, I think when we look back on it, a guy who was much maligned and Carson Beck and everything like that. But when we look back at the numbers, right? I mean, does anybody know where Carson Beck ranked in the country last season in passing yards?
Yards, I'm not sure, but I think in percentage he was like top 3.
Fourth.
Yeah,
he's fourth.
Fourth in the country in passing yards right?
Okay.
And see, and there you go, right? Like I think that's a lot of people's reaction. I think that's a lot of people's reaction because I legitimately I did not think that that was the case. It wasn't until I started, kind of prepping for the show that I was like, he finished fourth in the country in yards. Like that's just not, it's not at all what I expected. He finished, so the three people in front of him, right? Drew Mestamaker, right, with the North Texas and now transferred over to Oklahoma State. Darian Mensah, second, with 3,973 yards, right? Drew Messmaker had 4,379 yards. Darian Mensah, second, 3,973 yards. Third, Trinidad Chambliss, to be expected, right? He had 3,937 yards. Fourth, Carson Beck, 3,813 yards. So, again, that's why I just kind of keep going back to that word. And obviously, I mean, again, it's not anything groundbreaking, anything, super insightful, but it was just kind of this weird ebb and flow, I guess, to the offense kind of throughout the season. And when, again, we give the credit to the defense in this case, right? We give the credit to guys like Akeem Ezador and guys like Keontae Scott and obviously Ruben Bain and the whole deal. But, this offense wasn't bad, right? And again, when you sit there and you look at, the numbers they put up, I think I always just continue to go back to the credit that I give Shannon Dawson, right? And because, again, just another year of him, running an offense with guys on the outside that weren't difference makers, right? You take away Malachi Tony from this team, and there weren't any receivers that scared you, right? I think some guys maybe were underutilized, right? I think Keelan Marion, I think they kind of could have worked in a little bit different. But again, when you look at this offense, they were doing it without huge playmakers kind of on the outside. Again, Malachi Tony was just kind of his own entity almost, right, in the way they used them. But outside, it's kind of like the year before, right, with Cam Ward and the receiving core that he had. They weren't a bunch of highly recruited guys, and if you saw what the NFL thought of them, they didn't think very much of them because none of those guys got that. So, right, so I continue to kind of go back to the offense. If we can get an influx of some talent at the receiver position, this is an offense that can kind of begin to take the next step.
Yeah. Also, the tight end position, we really missed that this year.
Yeah.
I mean, the tight end play was subpar. I mean, Lofton supposed to be, preseason had him, like he was going to be first team, second team, All American.
God knows what, right?
Yeah, man, and that didn't work out. But yeah, that makes sense though with Carson Beck because the offense it did take a little slow start, but it exploded the second half of the season. And then our running game was, really kept the offense alive most of the year. So, I mean, it was good to see. I mean, that makes a lot of sense though. Fourth. No, I definitely didn't think that.
I was shocked when I saw that. I was totally shocked when I saw that. And then the other thing too to consider is they were fourth, right, without the explosive play element, right? And we'll get into that, later on and stuff. But I mean, this offense wasn't explosive. It wasn't an explosive offense, right? So it was more just kind of steady, matriculate the ball down the field, kind of, as they say, right? I mean, again, just Carson Beck, when he had a stretch, obviously we threw a lot of picks, but again, one thing I will give him credit for is the completion percentage. The completion percentage was high, right? And so again, the offense was more efficient than it was explosive, and that's something that to take that next step, I feel like is something that probably has to change in 26.
Yeah, going back to the tight end position a little bit. I think the loss of Riley Williams, even though he really didn't do anything at Oregon State because it's not a very good football team, was really hurtful because the kick a block and the kick a catch and pass receive as well. So I think that's something else. I think Elijah Lofton did have some injuries at the beginning of the season, but he was a bit underwhelming at times. He flashed a little bit, but it wasn't what we expected. Expected the guy that was having one-handed catches at practice. When the film was released from practice, whatever they were able to release. So yeah, it's one thing I will say that I would like to see more improvements from the tight end position this upcoming year, and I do expect it. I do like what I'm hearing about Luka Gilbert, all right, as well. I do think that Elijah could take a step up unless they use him like a Swiss Army knife, like they did for his first year but had him line up like an H-back a few times, like a quasi fullback as well. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, I'm shocked that Carson Beck's yards being so high at 4, being a top 5. I knew in completion percentage, he was like probably like 2 or 3 in the country because he was in this high 70s for all. He was actually number 1 for a while until we had those 2 slip-ups against until had those 2 slip-ups against Louisville and SMU. But this offense it got the job done when the running game got going, especially with the injection of Gerard Pringle. I think that really helped out. We started to see more outside runs. We started to see more creativity with the use of Malachi Toney. And I think that's where we really saw the potential this offense had. And I think it's a good momentum builder heading into this upcoming season.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I think when you look back on the offense, man, again, just the anomaly, right? That I think when it was almost like this contradiction, right? That you had going on with obviously, again, you know, if you're just looking at the numbers, right? You expect this offense to have shown more explosive plays than they showed, right? And again, man, just kind of some numbers just kind of drive home the point, right? When you're looking at, you know, their passing numbers, they were in terms of passing play percentage 47.24, 81st in the country, right? 81st in the country in pass play percentage, completion percentage, they were 5th. They were right at 71%. Yards per pass 8.1, which is 28th in the country. Passes per game 30.7. That's 75th in the country, right? 75th in the country.
Yeah.
75th, right? So there you go, right? It's just kind of the thing that like it's just it doesn't make sense to me. And you know, you're sitting and wonder why is it that we cannot get, because listen, man, if you look at that Indiana game, I told everybody, say, listen, when you look at what it is Miami did in that game, you're looking at, dude, you held Mendoza under 200 yards throwing. He didn't throw a touchdown pass, right? I mean, things like that. We sacked Indiana more. Miami sacked Indiana more than vice versa. All these things that happen, right? But then you look at it in terms of the Miami offense, and of course, I think to me that game was lost on special teams, right? You missed that field goal, you get that pump blocked. Those are 10 points. You end up losing by 6, right? Without that, you give back that pump being blocked, that's 7 points, and you lost by 6, right? And so. But to me, the thing that on offense that killed them, and I think during the big games, it was very evident, is as the competition stiffened, is the guys on the outside consistently could not get open. If it wasn't Malachi Toney creating something, the offense just couldn't complete a pass, right? And you saw it versus Texas A&M. You saw it, versus Ohio State. Like when the competition stiffened, dude, those receivers could not get open. And again, against Indiana, it kind of came to a head where it was like, no, it was Malachi Toney and literally nobody else. Keelan Marion couldn't get open. CJ Daniels could not separate to save his life. Like they had D'Angelo Ponds on him. CJ Daniels is 6'3", if I'm not mistaken. D'Angelo Ponds is 5'9" on a good day. D'Angelo Ponds is 5'9" on a good day, and he ate up CJ Daniels, right? Because again, he literally could not separate, right? And so, again, to me, when you look at the time that Carson Beck had, right, for everything that people want to talk trash about Shannon Dawson for, if you go back and watch that game, dude, Carson Beck was back there just tapping the ball. He's back and he's just waiting for somebody to get open, right? So the O-line did their job. Carson Beck was protected, right? But he just didn't have anybody to throw the ball to, right? And so, again, it's I go back to, all these people. Have I always been happy with Shannon Dawson? I haven't, right? There's been times where I'm just like, come on. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I think once the season ended, you look back on it and you were like, dude, he was limited with his receivers. Like, you hate to say that, but CJ Daniels was a limited guy, was a guy who just he didn't separate great. Keelan Marion, for as fast a guy as he wasn't a guy who was a great route runner necessarily, right? He had that big bomb against Ole Miss, right, where he, I think the coverage broke down. Obviously, Carson Beck found him. It was like, 65 yards or whatever it was. But like that wasn't the case throughout the season. They struggled when it came to explosive plays. You're right, Carson Beck
showed up on that last play of the national championship.
Exactly. Right. And so, again, man, I think when we look at what the deficiencies were with this offense, I'm somebody who I'm excited when we start getting into like when you break down the position groups, when you break down Darian Manson, the whole deal, what this offense could turn into in 2026 with what they've added through the transfer portal.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Also, let's not forget, Cam Ward was very good. I would say the same thing about the receivers last season as well, because Jacoby George couldn't get separation either. Sam Brown was at times he could, but not really as well. So, huh? What was that?
Boomer bust with Sam Brown. You know,
Yeah, it really was. So Jacoby
George,
George,
you get 3 games where you wouldn't even hear his name, and then all of a sudden he breaks out for 118 yards, and it's right. So just inconsistent.
Yeah, Restrepo wasn't the fastest guy, but he knew how to get open. He's a good route runner. He knew how to find a holes and space in the zone, which helped out his quarterback. But Cam Ward a lot of times broke plays down, by basically by scrambling, and the receivers got open on those plays. And that Carson Beck's not that dude. Okay, he did a little bit of that. That's how a Marion play happened as well. But he's just not that dude. I think this year with Mensa, he is that dude. Mensa can extend plays, and I think Mario did very well in addressing the situation about getting separation. He recruited guys that can get separation. He brought in guys in the transfer portal that are known for getting separations. A kid out of South Carolina is averaged 20 yards per reception. Okay, so that guy knows how to separate. All right, ask Clemson. All right, he knows how to separate. So I think that. So I'm really excited about the offense this season, because I do think on paper at least, it looks like we are more of a complete team that can methodically, surgically destroy you, right? If need be, if you play a cover 2 set and stuff like that, or you drop back 3. But we're also a team that if you want to play one-on-one, you're done. All right. So that's what I like about this football team coming into the season. I think it's a more complete offense comparable to last year, that you were working with what you had. You had guys that they are good, decent route runners. They're physical. They can make plays, but they weren't going to blow off the top of anybody except for Malachi Toney. So that's what I like. What I saw, in the offseason. That's what I'm seeing in the offseason. I'm excited for spring, because I like to see these guys in action as well. And I'm excited to see what the Mensa era is going to bring, because I think it's going to be a nice hybrid of what we have with Cam Ward and what we have with Carson Beck as well.
Love that. And I think Barkay is going to help out a lot also, just like as a safety blanket for Mensa. Their chemistry together, it's going to open a lot up for Malachi. I mean, if we could just get Lofton, we need a tight end, man. Elijah Arroyo 8 in the offense, so we need that. We know running game is going to be strong. I'm very excited, man. I can't wait to see what Mensa does for us, for sure.
Yep. Yeah. So now we turn the page now to 2026, and you look at first and foremost who they bring back, and it's great obviously to have continuity, right? Especially on offense, right? I mean we've seen how this year we saw what a new system and a new DC and everything can do for a defense, right? I mean, it's literally, they literally went from one of the worst defenses in the country to one of the best defenses in the country in the span of a season, right? On offense, it tends to not be that quick a turnaround. So that's why it's great to see continuity, with Shannon Dawson coming back, right? And so, again, you bring him back, but you lose a couple guys, right? I mean, we lost Cody Woodhill, the tight end coach, right? He left to Ole Miss. You lose Matt Merritt, who became the running backs coach, for the Arizona Cardinals, right? So that's always, again, if you're going to lose coaches to anybody, listen, there's no shame in losing them, to the NFL, right? And so now Mario has to hire 2 new coaches, but to me, listen, I get it's not ideal, to lose coaches and the whole deal. But if you're going to lose any coach on offense, to me, I would rank them in terms of like, okay, who are the coaches that I can stand losing? Tight end coach would be at the very top, right? And I think probably running backs coach, honestly, would be like right there after. And again, I'm not trying to be convenient about it and say, hey, listen, those losses aren't a big deal. The tight end position coach, I'm not super worried about. Losing Matt Merritt, I think hurts a little bit. Obviously, he was a coach that, his players liked, right? If you to a man, those guys were
good over there.
Well, you good?
Oh, that was Will.
Yeah. So I decided, I switched to my phone. So giving it a charge, man. Sorry about that, guys. I thought I had turn things off for a little bit.
No, man, you're good. So again, man, if I'm ranking coaches in terms of who I'm okay with losing, right? Tight ends coach at the very top of that list. I'm not worried about a tight ends coach. And if we're really being honest, we're looking at a guy like Cody Woodie, who, again, did he recruit the position, pretty well? Yeah, I guess he did. But in terms of development, what can we really look at, right? I think Elijah Arroyo was an outlier. I think he's a guy who I think Elijah Arroyo was going to be Elijah Arroyo with or without Cody Woodie. Period. Point blank. I think he was a guy who, obviously you saw he went in the second round to the Super Bowl champions. I think he was a guy who just a super talented guy, had the measurables. The only thing missing for Elijah Arroyo was health. And when he got that, he was able to stay on the field and he became a second round pick. So I think to me, I don't think a guy like Cody Woodie made a difference there, right? Did he recruit the position? Again, fairly well. Yeah. If you look at the room, I think you've got some guys that are, fairly highly recruited. Obviously, you start with Elijah Lofton, a guy who was a highly recruited kid out of Las Vegas, out of Bishop Gorman. You lose Brock Schott to Indiana, who was another guy who, again, at the time he committed, it was a nice get for them, pulling him out of the state of Indiana. I was kind of excited, honestly, about Brock Schott to see what he could turn into, because I think he had some Brock Bowers to him. And I'm not saying he was going to be Brock Bowers, but in terms of the measurables, in terms of the body type and the whole deal, reminded me a lot of a guy like Brock Bowers. So I was excited about what he could turn into, right? You lose a guy like Bradley Williams, obviously that didn't help. But again, you look at the room. I think if you bring in the right guy, I think it's a room that you can be excited about, because again, I think the talent in the room, I think the body types in the room are something that you can get excited about. Again, there's not lack of talent. I think what it is, just there's lack of productivity, right? And I think there's a little bit of lack of development, right? Lou, what's going on, homie? Glad to see you tuning in, man. And so again, when you look at that room, again, if I'm a potential tight ends coach, like I'm looking at that room and I'm saying, look, there's plenty to work with right there. Again, Gavin Mueller, highly recruited kid, a guy that a lot of people are high on, right? I think that kid's going to be legit. You're looking at, you're looking at Luka Gilbert, a guy who is humongous, right? And a guy who can move for his size, a guy who can block and the whole deal. So there's, we'll see what we get from Elijah Lofton. I'm of the think that Elijah Lofton long-term isn't a tight end. I don't think he's got the height to be a tight end. I don't think he's got the body type to be a tight end. I think he's more of an H-back, just an offensive weapon type. I just don't see him long-term being a guy who's going to be effective at the tight end position. That's just me. We'll see how that turns out. But again, I think as a position group, I feel like, you're looking at that and going, hey, they don't lack for talent. I don't think they lack for talent in that room. I just think they lack for productivity and they lack for development. And I think if you get the right guy in there, I think you can unlock some of that stuff.
Well, you also got to get them the ball too, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm just judging off like my eyes. We barely threw to the tight end last year. It was mostly wide receivers when we did throw. So
yeah, and listen, man, I think
when they opportunities.
Yeah, I think Alex Bauman, I think he caught I think he was right at 300 yards or kind of something like that, right? And but again, Alex Bauman was a guy who just wasn't a difference maker, right? Alex Bauman was, right? He was inconsequential, right? Very average, right? Yeah. And I think he was a guy that, I think all things considered, right, when you brought him in, I don't think he was a guy that they ever looked at as a guy who was going to be a huge difference maker. He was a guy who they were going to bring in, buy some time, for the guys in that room, right, for your Luka Gilberts or for your Brock Schotts and, and that kind of thing, for Elijah Lofton to kind of get his feet under him and that kind of thing. I don't ever think Alex Bauman was brought in to be, a huge weapon. I just don't think he's got the capability to be a difference maker. He was never going to be an Elijah Arroyo, right, to stretch the field at the tight end position.
He was also brought in, from what I understand, to be like a red zone threat, but he wasn't even that. They barely even used him in the red zone.
He was decent blocker, right? A guy who would get you 6-7 yards or something like that, right? A guy who could be a red zone threat when you're closer to, when you're in the red zone and everything. But I don't think he was ever brought in as a guy who was going to be, this huge difference maker, right? I just think the room needed some seniority to it, needed some experience to it, and that's kind of what he brought you. But in terms of who you were looking at to be a difference maker, right? I don't think Alex Bauman was ever looked at as a guy who was going to be a difference maker.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I completely agree. Like, definitely was not going to be a difference maker. And again, he was average. I do think that if we would have had Riley Williams, playing, Alex Bauman doesn't really see much of the football field because Riley Williams did everything we wanted our tight ends to do. Riley Williams was a good blocker. He was athletic enough where he could actually get open and he could actually make plays as well. Down the field if need be, or get your first downs, etc. So again, the Riley Williams loss was a little bigger than what we really anticipated for it to be. And yeah, and Lofton struggled a little bit when he was on. He was on. Like, he showed flashes throughout the season, but I agree with you, Q. Either they find a way to utilize them, or I think they go back to the Swiss Army knife deal and make them an H-back, quasi fullback, etc. With the tight ends that they're bringing in, as far as recruitment goes, you're not going to really need Elijah Lofton to take up much of the load as far as the tight end position goes, because Mueller has the size, Gilbert has the size, Izzy Briggs has the size in terms of height. He's just not that big. I heard he gained like about maybe 20 pounds or something like that, or he got bigger. So he could be your flex guy, in general. But the bottom line is that I think we'll see Elijah Lofton used more like he was his freshman year, more so than they used him this year in terms of the tight end.
Yeah, and you mentioned Izzy Briggs, right? A guy who was, I think, like a top 75 player in the country.
Yeah.
Guy out of California. So again, I had forgotten him when I was mentioning the position group and the tight end room. But again, man, right? Like, you're looking at, if I'm a tight ends coach, right, and you're looking at, obviously, small picture, right, but you're looking at what type of offense this is and what type of room you'd be walking into, along with the recruiting prowess of a guy like Mario Cristobal, who, listen, at the end of the day, if you got Mario Cristobal as your lead recruiter for everything you do, Mario Cristobal is your lead recruiter, right? So you don't have to go in and be some. Now, you don't have to be the lead recruiter. Now, again, you have to have a presence, right? I think a guy like Cody Woodio, from all reports are, he was a guy who was well liked, a guy who was, was good at building relationships. I think a guy who people liked, and everything like that. But listen, for me, bringing in, imagine, dude, a guy like James Coley, right, or something like that, a guy who's like a legit recruiter, and a guy who, again, who's coached every position, right? But you bring him in, right, and I think you really, maybe start to maximize this room. Look at what they've done at Georgia, right, at that position, and so, again, man, there's a lot to work with when you're looking at body types, when you're looking at talent, right, when you're looking at, just the room as a whole. I mean, you're looking at a room that is not void of talent. It is not that. It's a room that's got a lot of talent, right? And the body types and everything like that. And you're kind of in terms of your classes, right? You've got the guys kind of staggered where you've got some upperclassmen, you've got some some sophomores, now you've got really talented freshmen coming in, and so there's a lot to work with there. And I think Mario. Yeah, Mario will find the right guy and put him in there. Exactly. A mixed bag, but a damn goodie bag, right? When you're looking at what you got in that room, I think if, again, you get a guy who can get in there and really, really maximize that room, I think it is a difference-making room if you get the right guy in there. So we'll see. We'll see where Mario goes with a hire. He likes to take his time. I think they mentioned something like another month or so, I believe, before spring gets kicked off. So I would imagine it would be like the weekend before the spring spring football starts, that he's gonna name a coach. He likes to take his time with it. So
I'm a Coley Pata guy, bro. And bring back Ed Pata or bring back James Coley. Those are my two guys.
Yeah, and listen, man, you've seen the way these hires have gone. When it comes to Mario, right? Like I said, man, he takes his time. It tends to be somebody we don't expect, right? A guy like Ed Pat, I think, would be very welcomed, in that room. Obviously, he's right up the road at FIU, and so obviously, him and having been with Mario, previously, again, would bring some familiarity. Would bring a guy who's well liked, well respected in the community. I think he's a guy who could recruit the area, which I think is big. So, we'll see, man. We'll see who he brings in, but hopefully with a name here soon. Because again, as we get closer to spring practice going on, we definitely like to have that guy in the building and getting familiar with the offense, getting familiar with his personnel. So, We move on to the running back position, man. Another position that, you know, we go again, right? Looking for a new running backs coach, like we mentioned before. Matt Merritt, you know, heads off to the NFL, heads off to the Arizona Cardinals. So congrats to him. You know, and a guy who leaves behind a really talented room, right? And again, this is kind of the common denominator that we're seeing as you go position group to position group, right? They built this roster. It's legit. When you're looking at offense, you're looking at top to bottom, and every room is stacked. And the running back room is right there. You know, with the most talented position groups, you know, on the team, right? It starts with a guy like Mark Fletcher, but even on down, right? A guy like Gerard Pringle, who had hit the transfer portal. They got him to stay. You know, they got him to get his name out of the portal when he was getting. From our reports, he was getting, you know, some offers from Georgia, Alabama, and I'm sure all on the up and up. I'm sure nobody tampered. I'm sure everything was done, you know, legally, because, you know, as we know, only Miami tampers, right? And so, you know, again, you know, a room that, again, with Mark Fletcher, Gerard Pringle, you're looking at a guy, you know, in Chris Wheatley Humphrey, who really hasn't seen the field. By all accounts, he's a talented guy. The dude is fast. You know, so on and so forth, right? So a room
Jordan Lyle's back, right?
Jordan Lyle, which a lot of people were surprised at, right? A lot of people were surprised that he didn't hit the portal, because, you know, by all accounts, he would have been somebody who would have, you know, attracted a lot of attention. You know, so I'm glad to see him. Yeah, man. And then Marty Brown, right? You know, a guy who, again, another one who by all accounts was getting a lot of attention. You know, potentially from big teams, you know, in terms of a starting position, right? So you look at, you know, we talked the last show about the culture, right, being built by Mario in Miami, and I think this kind of shows it, right? When you're looking at the guys that are staying behind, I think you're looking, and it's a direct correlation to that culture that is being built at Miami, right? So you got to be really impressed with the room as a whole, and just another room that should be really attractive to you know, running back coaches around the country.
And Mensa probably going to benefit the most from this talented group of running backs that we got, just because of what he can do with his legs. Everybody expects him to throw so much. I'm sure everybody's just going to be expecting him to throw with his production that he's had in years past. So it should be a great time. I love the running back room. By far my favorite room on the offense. So I mean, it's all looking good. Keep grounding and pounding, and then have Mensa do what he does, bro. It should turn out to be a great offense. Absolutely. Next year. I'm talking about could be real special, like a top 5 offense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will, what do you think?
The best for our quarterback is a solid running game, and I think Mets is going to have a very solid running game. I think Miami's going to be it's going to be a top 10 offense. I think it's going to be almost 40 points. It's very difficult to stop this team, and even though the offensive line, and I'm sure we'll get into the offensive line, is slightly inexperienced, you know, and so on, it's still very talented. And I think, you know, especially with the first few games of the season, you have a veteran quarterback that can navigate through that inexperience by the time, you know, when play really picks up, as well against like the Clemsons and Notre Dames, etc. I think this team will be locked in and very ready, and will be very damaging. The benefit to this season is having Mensa for spring versus what happened with Carson Beck when he was trying to get better with the injury. I think having Mensa taking reps with these guys, you know, calling signals, seeing the protection, placing where it needs to be, you know, getting his running backs lined up, using them in protection packages over in terms of practice. I think it's going to be very beneficial for this team. But this running back room, in my opinion, is the absolute best in the country. They are loaded from top to bottom, from big powerful backs to change of pace backs, right, as well. And they could also catch the football as well. So I mean, I'm really excited. Like, I agree with Adrian, man. This is my favorite room, and it's the room that's going to cause the most damage to opposing defenses.
Yeah, listen, man. Again, another characteristic of this room, of this position group, right, is just the way it's layered. Right, you bring back a guy like Mark Fletcher, who by all accounts was going to be a fairly highly drafted running back if he came out this year, right? So you bring him back, right, and then afterwards you look at what you have in terms of the room, and its body types, right? And you got everything, right? You got your big, powerful guy, with speed, who I'll be honest with you, I never realized till he broke off that first really long run that Mark Fletcher could run the way he could run. I'll be 100% honest with you. I just hadn't seen it, right? And so it was like eye-opening to me, bro. Yeah, that boy good. Like he broke that one off against Texas A&M, and I was like, where the hell has that been? Right? Like this, we just hadn't seen it. Right? It was like 4 yards here, 7 yards there, right? 9 yards here, 6 yards, right? So a guy who can get the tough yards, but all of a sudden it was like, dude, he found this burst that I didn't know he had, right? So it was great to see that, right? And then you add, Marty Brown, right? A guy who doesn't have the speed necessarily that Mark Fletcher has, right? But a guy who runs tough as hell inside, right? You throw Gerard Pringle in there, kind of the change of pace back. Bro, if you can get a healthy Jordan Lyle, right? And then you add to that, again, almost an afterthought at this point, which is Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, right? And then back there, way in the back of the room, in the back of the class, is JVM Mallory, who you're looking at and going, this guy was going to camps and outperforming guys, the guys that were way more highly recruited than him, right? And so, again, man, you're looking at this room, and when you're pitching, this room to potential candidates, you're going, hey, man, like, look what you got there. Like that is body a hell shots. Of a room. That's a hell of a room.
Straight body shots.
That 100%, man, layered exactly how you want to see it layered. The body types exactly how you want to see them, right? You have all different, depends on the flavor, right? And I think when you're looking at that room, when you're looking at the wide receiver room, which we'll get into, really it just becomes, to me, it's okay, what's the down? What's the distance? What's the matchup, right? What are we looking to do? And that's going to determine really who you roll out at the end of the day, right? I mean, what's the score, right? If we're, hopefully, these kind of lesser teams that you'll be playing, hopefully, listen, you throw in that third or fourth quarter, a Chris Wheatley-Humphrey, who we haven't seen a whole bunch of, right? You throw in a JVM Mallory, kind of give him a few carries, right? A Jordan Lyle, to really start to get his feet under him and get some production out of him. So, again, man, it really just kind of comes down to what matchup do I like, right? What's the down and distance? And that's going to determine who it is that you roll out, man. And I think that's a great luxury to have.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of riches, man. At back, JVM Mallory reminds me of Black from Indiana. He's got that stocky build, and so he's very physical runner. He's a lot quicker than people give him credit for, all right, as well. So I think that was a good get. I know Morrow didn't get his second running back in his recruiting cycle, but it's a good thing that Fletcher came back, which adds more depth into the room, all right, as well. Again, best running back room in the country. I can't find a better running back room better than what Miami has right now, both in physicality and speed and change of pace, etc. And not only that, most get pass protect, right, as well, which is very essential in a Mauro Cristobal-led offense.
No, listen, sure. to play, and that was kind of one of the things, right? Gerard Pringle, coming back and taking his name out of the portal. I think it was one of the things, because I kind of complained a lot, right? If I had one complaint about Matt Merritt, was I thought at times the substitution patterns, I thought were just they were a little bit off. I just thought they went, too long of stretches without Gerard Pringle playing, right? And that was. For as good as the room was, and obviously Mark Fletcher as a competition, got tougher. I just think, you were just more Mark Fletcher dependent based on, the running style with the defenses they were playing, and then the pass protection aspect of the things. I think you really had almost no choice but to go to Mark Fletcher. Mm-hmm. But I thought if I had one complaint about the room, I just thought at times, again, the substitution patterns, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a guy like Marty Brown, right? A little bit more of a guy like Gerard Pringle. And I think if you would have given Gerard Pringle, I think a little bit more run in the playoffs, I don't think you ever deal with him going into the portal, right? And because from all accounts, the complaint from him and his parents were they just forgot about me in the playoffs, right? And to a certain extent, I get it, right? The matchup, right, kind of determines who it is you played. But I still think that you could have rolled out Gerard Pringle a little bit more than you did. So again, if I had one complaint, I think Matt Merritt recruited the position well. I think he developed the position well. I think he retained the position well, right? Because again, all those guys stayed. But I thought if anything, it might be nitpicking because obviously, they made the national title game and everything like that. But I thought his substitution patterns, I think at times were a little bit disjointed. If again, nitpicking, I know. But that'd be my one complaint with a guy like Matt Merritt.
Yeah, I'm gonna slightly disagree with you because it's well known in sports that in playoffs, like rotations have to tighten up a little bit, and you kind of ride the hot hand. And the hot hand in the playoffs was Mark Fletcher and was Marty Brown. And the couple times I did use Gerard Pringle, mind you, it was a very minuscule fashion. He really didn't get things going, and plus in pass protection against A&M, he got mauled. And again, the one thing that will get you off the field in a Mark Cristobal at offense doesn't matter. If Joe Brady is the OC, if you cannot pass protect, you will not get on the field. And I think as to reiterate what you're saying, when the competition got a little stiffer and you face some bigger defenses, Gerard Pringle, mind you, I give him credit. He took that hit like a man, against A&M because he did stop the guy. He just ended up flat on his back, on that play against at the end, whoever it was, I forget the time. But the bottom line is that Marty Brown and Mark Fletcher were better in pass protection. That's why, and much clearer, better in pass protection. That's why they stayed on the field. I do think that if they would have needed more outside runs, you may have wanted to adjust the play calling a little bit. So maybe you do incorporate more of a Gerard Pringle. But since between the tackles was killing everybody, as well, they just played their game, and that's why they used Fletcher, throughout the game. Like, for example, even against Ohio State, it was the Fletcher show. But when you want to give the knockout blow, then in the second half, you brought in Marty Brown. So, I really didn't have a problem with the rotation. And again, it's a team sport, and you just ride the hot hand. I mean, I'm sorry, it's for Gerard Pringle. I get the way his parents felt because I think he was one of the main reasons why they had such a turnaround. In the second half of the season, I think he was very instrumental in that. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business decision. If they bring him in for like 3-4 plays and the offense stagnates, what are they going to say? They should have never brought him in the first place. Keep riding Fletcher. It is what it is.
Yeah, I guess the pushback, right? If I'm it's wild that we have to talk about how do his parents feel, right? But that's college football in 2026, right? Like that 2025, 2026. That's how it goes. But to me, I think you would have had less of a complaint. Like I said, you saw the offense, and this is so now I'm playing devil's advocate, right? If you're Gerard Pringle and his parents, you go, listen, when the offense was struggling, you want to know what turned it around? Incorporating Gerard Pringle, right? Again, like if I'm playing devil's advocate, right? I'm looking at that, I'm going, listen, he helped turn this offense around when it was stagnant, when you got lost 2 out of 3, right? What happened? You incorporated Gerard Pringle, and this thing turned around. Everything turned around, right? The running game turned around. The passing game got better. Literally everything got better when you incorporated. So if I'm looking at your
part, now sit down and shut up.
Yeah, right. So there is that, right? There is that 100%, right? But just playing devil's advocate, right? You can look at it and be like, hey, listen, if I help turn this thing around, it's only right that you incorporate me come playoff time, right? And so again, right, wrong, indifferent. I think at the very least, I mean, you've got an argument. If you're him, you've got an argument, right? Now, again, not discounting everything that you guys have said whatsoever, because again, big boy football, big boy defenses, right? I mean, the competition stiffened, and 100% I get that. But again, in the mind of a competitor, right? If you're looking at that, you're going, hey, listen, man, if I turn this thing around, I should have a chance to contribute come playoff time. So
it's more
that's
ego
why
than anything. That's what that sounds like.
I mean, and right. And I think, listen, to be great, I think you have to have a little bit of ego, right? I think all the greats have had an ego. Like don't let them tell you different. Some more than others, but again, I think so you can call it ego and you can call it competitiveness, right? I think, listen, listen, I turned this thing around. Like, let me get a couple carries. Right. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to be the number one in front of Mark Fletcher, but I'm saying like, let me get some carries. Like, don't let me go 2 straight games without seeing the field. Like, so that's kind of where I'm at. Right. So if we're going, 18 carries for Mark Fletcher, 19 carries, whatever it is, if you go 16 carries and you give, Gerard Pringle gets 3 or 4, right? You throw him a bone to a certain extent. And I think you had enough going on in the game. Right. So again, totally playing devil's advocate. You can't argue with the result because of what happened. Nobody can argue with the result. So if I'm looking at it the other way and I'm a coach, I'm going, Gerard, we made the national title game, right? Like, we made the national title game. So let's have some perspective here, right? And I think game type and game flow had more to do with it than, we don't want to play Gerard Pringle. Why wouldn't we want to play him? Like, we know what he can do. It was just a matter of the game didn't call for you to get reps.
It's only it's only so many touches. Yeah.
100%.
exactly.
Yeah. And you know, and so again, just if I'm nitpicking, and of course anybody could push back on that, right? That would be the only thing again for me, for Matt Marriott. At times, I just feel like, you know, they were just a little bit disjointed, and I would have liked to see just a little bit more in terms of maybe Gerard Pringle getting a couple more carries. I'm assuming the Jordan Lyle deal had more to do with injury than anything, because obviously it's not for lack of talent. Obviously, I think when he came out, on three had him as the #1 running back in the country when he came out. So obviously he's a guy who's super talented, a guy from St. Thomas Aquinas. All those guys know him. They know him well. You know, the big, fast, you know, the whole deal, right? So I would imagine his deal was more injury related than anything. But hey, if you get this room healthy next year, right? You add a Jordan Lyle to a room that already had Fletcher, that already had Pringle, that already had Marty Brown, right? And Chris, a guy like Chris Wheatley Humphrey, who by all accounts is a burner as an afterthought. A guy like Javian Mallory, who's a highly recruited kid. Listen, man, hey, this running back room, layered, great. The body types are there. It's just a matter of just getting the right coach, you know, into this room, and just continuing what Matt Marriott already started.
Absolutely.
So we'll see. Looking forward to a name, you know, coming out of, you know, who knows, man. I don't know, you know, where. I've heard a couple names. Benedict Hippolyte, you know, who's at FIU also, who was at Miami, is a name that I heard just recently. You know, some guys from around the country. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but hopefully we'll get a name here soon, because you know, again, we're kind of getting down to you know, closer to spring ball, and we definitely like to see somebody get in there and get familiar with this room. But again, a lot to work with, man. A lot to work with, a lot of talent, and you know, you'd imagine it's a room that's going to continue to get recruited really well by Mario Cristobal. So you know, the next position group, man. Listen, I know you guys have talked about being really excited about the running backs, and I get it. My favorite position group on the offense right now, in terms of what it could be, based on who the quarterback is going to be, I'll be honest with you, are the wide receivers. And when you look at this, listen, man, like you got to pay attention to what's going on in this wide receiver room, bro. Like, this is a wide receiver room that is listen, I know what the running backs are. I know the running back room is loaded. But when you look at the way the wide receiver room is layered, when you look at the body types, and when you look at what this room could potentially be, when you look at the production from last year from the guys you brought in, you know, in the transfer portal. Listen, Cooper Barkade, I think by and large, now we know who he is, right? We know what he is.
Oh yeah.
Less heralded guys, Cam Vaughn, and Dravius Jacobs. When you look at the tape that these guys put out from last year with subpar QB play, what these guys were doing in terms of getting downfield is exactly what this offense was missing. Because when you look at what Malachi was doing, he was a guy that was doing it, you know, just like after the catch, right? He was a yak monster, right? He'd catch the ball 6-7 yards downfield, you know, break some tackles and take off, right? He's not a guy based on body type, and he's not a burner necessarily. He's not a guy who's going to just, you know, line up and just run by you, right?
Well, Beck missed him a lot downfield, so could have been a burner. Could have had way more touchdowns.
I don't know,
Beck
man.
missed him quite a few times.
I think Age was having Ole Miss flashbacks of that the first quarter when Beck missed him completely.
Now, listen,
that was happening all season.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just don't see Malachi Tony as a guy who's ever going to be a guy who's like one-on-one consistently running by guys to get open downfield. I just don't see him as that type of receiver. Now, could he get faster in the whole deal? Well, 100%. I hope he does, right? But I think he's a guy who even at this young an age is a guy who's a really good route runner, right? And a guy who's going to get open and make catches that way, as opposed to just burning,
You think
like, for example,
he's more quick than fast?
he's quick than fast,
Yeah.
exactly, right? Look at
Okay.
Florida State. You remember his, like, even the one that got called back, right? Which was a BS call that got it called
Yeah.
back. But his long catches against Florida State were, now he did get behind Florida, obviously, for one long one, right? He got behind the defense. But by and large, it was like him, 7, 8 yards on field, catch, shook a couple people and boom, and took off, right? And so what I think, when you're looking at a guy like Cooper Barkate, when you're looking at Cam Bond, when you look at Vendarius Jacob, these are guys who are like 21, 22 yard a catch type guys. You're looking at the numbers they're putting up, and it's not a lot of catches, but a lot of yards, right? So I've seen their tape and the highlights, like on Twitter and the whole deal. I mean, these are guys that are consistently getting behind the corner and making big plays downfield. And again, with very subpar quarterback play. Because if you're looking at South Carolina, Lenore Sellers was not good this year. Like was borderline bad, if I'm being honest, right? And so and I can't remember who it is they have playing quarterback at West Virginia, but these guys consistently getting downfield and behind guys. So it's just like we talked about at the beginning of the show, what cost them against a team like Indiana was just not being able to separate. I just don't see the same type of issues going on this year in that wide receiver room.
Is Will froze? It looks like it.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, I like the wide receiver room. Barkate definitely gonna be like Mensa's safety blanket. I mentioned that before. I really believe that, and that's gonna open up a lot of other things for everybody else, including the tight end position. But we already talked about that. I do think that having Mensa for the spring, like Will said, is going to just do wonders, man. You're going to see they'll build that chemistry that Carson Beck and his receivers didn't have. You could obviously tell they were lacking in chemistry, throughout points in the season. And it showed up on the biggest stage. So, but I mean, we'll see how spring looks. But I'm excited. I'm excited for sure.
Will, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think Cooper Barkate's really gonna be like a security blanket as well. I think Vandarius Jacobs, in terms of burning, is gonna be great as far as like blowing the top off of receivers. Again, 20 yards per average per reception. It's nothing to sneeze at, right? As well. And you're right, the quarterback play was mediocre. Now they're gonna have stellar quarterback play as well. I'm curious. So speaking of rotations, in general, I'm curious to see like how they handle the rotation this time around, because we would see Josh Moore appearances and then Josh Moore would just disappear, all right, as well. And so it's going to be I would like to see the young guys who are extremely talented get a lot of run, not just the guys we brought in from the portal as well. So I'm curious to see how they use Joshua Moore this season. I'm dying to see some Martin Wingo on the field. I heard he's been killing it at practice, right, as well. And I like to see how they use Milan Paris this season as well. Milan Paris is he's like 6'4", but he's also really quick, and he can 50-50 balls. He's going to be a nightmare for everybody. So there's another room that is absolutely an embarrassment of riches, because it's loaded from top to bottom. It's loaded with your veteran players. It's loaded with seasoned guys as well on the football team, and it's loaded with very good young guys as well. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But I think this is a room that's really going to excel this season, and I do think that we have guys as well that can cause separation, from being single coverage, especially in one-on-one situations as well.
Yeah,
And you know what also help? Mensa's ability with his legs.
Yeah,
that will help separation as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, you're looking at a room, and again, very similar to what we're looking at with your running back room, with your tight end room, right? There's just more bodies in the wide receiver room, but layered, in my opinion, which I think is really important. I think it's a room that's layered the right way. When you're talking your upperclassmen, right? Your experienced guys, your returners, right? And then your freshmen, coming in. I think it's a room that's layered absolutely perfectly. When you're looking at the very top, of your more experienced guys, Cooper Barkate is a guy who, again, super experienced, super productive, right? Knows the ACC, a guy I think who was 9th nationally, in receiving yards, right? Best friends with Darian Mensah, right? Hence the following him to Miami. You add Jacobs and Vaughn, who, again, upperclassmen, guys with experience, guys who have played you know, in big games, right? Jacobs coming from the SEC and the whole deal. Then you're looking at, you know, after that, you bring back Malachi Toney, right? You add Josh Moore to that, obviously a guy who they're really, really excited about in terms of like body type, size, and the whole deal. So the combination of size and speed. Dalen Upshaw, who's just scratching the surface in terms of what he's capable of. And then you add the freshman, right? The freshman class coming in. Listen, Samarian Wingo, everybody is super excited about. Right, you're looking at a guy like Milan Paris. Everybody's super excited about. These guys are huge. When you're looking at, you know, the body type, the size, and the speed combination, everybody's super excited about. And then you add to that Van Spafford, a guy who isn't tall but has blazing speed. Right, a guy who's, you know, verified speed, verified track speed. A guy who they're really excited about to, you know, bring in that, you know, a guy they brought in from California. Right, and so. And the fourth freshman receiver, whose name escapes me. I just had it, and
it's Tyron Evans.
Tyron Evans. There you go. Right. So again, another big kid. Right. Another guy who's like 6'3", right, like 200 pounds, a big dude. So, dude, you're looking at this wide receiver room again. The way it's layered, the body types that you have, the returning, you know, production, you know, that you're going to have, the potential for the guys who haven't been established yet, you know, just. Dude, I'm so excited for this wide receiver room, and I get what the running back room. I get why they're causing excitement. I am beyond excited for the wide receiver room because of who the quarterback is going to be, and now having him be there from day one, right? Last year, what we didn't have, which obviously was to their detriment, was Carson Beck coming in, you know, not having participated in spring, and then you have a guy like Malachi Toney who ends up being your best receiver as a reclassified true freshman, right? Yep. And those guys just not being able to work together. Obviously, they figured it out clearly because, you know, I mean, look Malachi Toney ended up with over 1,000 yards in the whole deal. So they definitely figured it out. But you look at everybody else, and I think at times the lack of familiarity did show. That there was times where it was a little bit disjointed, even though the numbers showed they were pretty good throughout the year. But I think at times the lack of familiarity showed, you know, through some games and through some ups and downs.
Imagine if he was there in the spring.
Yeah,
exactly, and that's the thing, right? When as good as they were, I think they could have been even better if he had, especially to start the season, right? Where you looked at these games. Listen, when Carson Beck was good, he was really good, right? But he had this stretch, right, where all his picks came in like 3 games. I think he threw like 12 picks last year. I think like 9 of them ended up coming in just like 3 games.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think at times that inability for the receivers to separate, that lack of familiarity, I think all contributed to those interceptions kind of, you know, just you know, rearing their ugly heads at the wrong times.
And throwing some ducks too, like.
Yeah, a couple ducks, you know, and unfortunately, man, I think that's one of those deals that not knowing what the call was.
Yeah,
I think it's really easy to just go Carson Beck, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely think it's a communication issue.
Yeah, and again,
he's throwing to a spot and
100%.
the receiver ain't there. That's
exactly,
you know,
or the receiver stop.
Yeah,
as well,
listen,
is the problem.
Look, I may be in the minority in this. I get what people said about Carson Beck and the whole deal, but I'm of the belief that it's like 8 times out of 10 when there's miscommunication down the field, that's on the receiver, not on the quarterback. And again, I don't know if you push back on that. But again, I think to me, and especially when you consider when people talk about Carson Beck, listen, body language aside, and whatever it is you want to say about him, when people talk about Carson Beck, you hear almost universally like, listen, this is a guy who knows the position. This is a guy who is a student of the game, regardless of whatever you want to, you know, bring up with him in terms of his previous relationships and just whatever happened at Georgia. One thing people have never said about him is, oh, he doesn't. He's not a student of the game. He doesn't know ball exactly, right? And I've heard him in some interviews, like, and I'm not a quarterback's coach, and I'm not an offensive coordinator or anything, but I've watched enough football and I've listened to enough material where you listen to Carson Beck talk, the guy knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he does.
The dude knows the position, right?
He does.
I mean, he knows the position of quarterback, right? And so to me, when you're looking at those mistakes being made, I think to me, I'm like, that's on the receiver. Like, to me, that's on the receiver, right? And so again, we'll never know, right? Obviously, it all comes back to him, and I think there's kind of some built-in.
You probably right.
Stuff.
About 8 out of 10 is.
Yeah, I'd say 8 out of 10.
receiver.
Not 10 out of 10. Clear, right? Because that's never going to be the case, right? You can't always, give the quarterback like all the credit, but at the majority of the time, I think more often than not, I think you're looking to be like, that was probably the receiver that ran the wrong route. That was probably the receiver that didn't break where he needed to break, right? And so, you get a comment from here from Lou. Mensa won't be making those mistakes. Lou, from your fingertips to God's ears, my friend. I listen. I have high hopes, man. I've got high hopes, and we'll get into that here in a second. But the reason why I say the wide receivers are my favorite group is because of the addition of Darian Mensa, right? And so, again, I just think having him there for the spring, having him, just get familiar with his guys really early, man, I think he's going to cut out a lot of those communication mistakes to start the season. And I'm telling you, man, I think this group is going to hit the ground running, and they're going to put up a ton of points on people.
Yeah, I like it.
So
yeah,
I
think Bruce Warner has been predicted at over 40 points a game. So I hope he's right on that one.
Well,
the truth teller.
There's some people predicting 52 points a game, which is wild.
Oh wow, that's crazy,
dude. If that
like
were to
525
happen,
yards a game,
if
52
points.
If
that were to happen,
that's crazy.
I could live with that.
Potential. There's potential for that, for sure.
I could live with those numbers. I could
give me 52 points a game anytime. I'll be all right.
I feel like I could live with 52 points a game. I'll be honest with you. I really feel
I want to shout out Miami Mondo, man. His birthday today, and he just put. Well, I don't know when he put it, but he just commented that he's tuned in. So I just want to shout him out. Happy birthday, brother!
Mondo.
Happy birthday, Mondo!
Happy birthday, big bro. Hope you've had a great day, man. Cheers to you. I know you're.
Go look on it and see what he ate. What his wife cooked him up.
I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Incredible.
I'm gonna have to go check that out. So you got into a nice birthday spread, huh? Good for him, nice. Man. Good for him, bro. You deserve it, Mondo. Happy birthday, brother.
Yeah.
The next position group, man, I wanna look at is obviously, the one we haven't talked about, mentioned quarterback, but O-line, right?
Yeah.
And listen, man, this is one of those years that the O-line, I'm not going to say I'm concerned. I think concern would be a strong word, right? Hey, before we move on to that, I got a comment here from Lou. Could Tony challenge Strebel's record? Bro, I don't know how that's anything but a resounding yes. Right?
Yeah.
I don't know how it's anything but a resounding yes. I mean, when you look at what he did this year, again, man, people lose sight of that, right? Like, as productive as he was a guy that shouldn't even have been in college, right? And so you're looking at the numbers he put up.
It should have been even more productive, actually.
Exactly, right? And so when you look at what he did this year, now I will say this: the wide receiver room next year, I think we're going to see a lot more production kind of spread out throughout that room. So to me, I would say, like, as productive as he was this year, as good as he was this year, he went over 1,000 yards. I'm going to say, in terms of just, not regress. He doesn't regress because he doesn't play as well. I just think that room is going to look really different.
Because he's not fast enough. Because he's not fast enough.
Exactly. No. I think it is because there's just going to be more contribution from the portal. You're going to get. Listen. Again, given the benefit of health, I think you're going to get. Listen, a guy like Cooper Barkade is going to eat. Right? Cooper Barkade is going to eat in this offense, right?
Also going to open it up for Malachi.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think when you're looking at
to go either way.
What exactly? I think for me, the way I'm looking at it is when you trot out the wide receiver core that you're going to trot out next season, I just think there's going to be a lot more mouths to feed than there was in 25. right? And so again, I think
Malachi might average 30 yards of reception.
yeah, I just don't know that he goes over. He does. To me, my money would be on he's under 1,000 yards, right? Because not because he's not going to be able. Now he's not capable, but I just think there's just going to be more mouths to feed on the offense. I think Cooper Barkade is going to eat into that. I think a guy like Bendravius Jacobs is going to eat into that. I think a guy like Kevin Vaughn is going to eat into that, right? Whatever you get from the tight end room, which you got nothing this year.
Tight ends,
hopefully the tight ends eat into that. And so, because again, man, I understand that the kid loves to play. I understand that, listen, they had him on the field. He didn't want to come off. But I think at some point you have to not limit, right? But just reduce the touches like a smidge, right? A smidge, not a lot. He's
going to be 18 years old.
He's going to be 18 years old, right? And so, again, man, I think with what you've brought in, I just think there's more talent in the room. I just think there's going to be more ability in the room, and I think they're going to spread the ball out more. And so, again, I just think just based on that, I think the numbers will regress a little bit just naturally. I just think there's just going to be a natural regression in his numbers and the number of catches. But in terms of a career and the whole deal, like I don't think it's crazy to think that when it's all said and done, that he's gonna break records. Now, this is the other thing you got to remember: Restrepo like maxed out his eligibility.
Yeah,
right. Restrepo was a guy who didn't play early. Restrepo was a guy who was a 3-star kid, lightly recruited.
Tony ain't staying that long.
And so that's where I was going with that. So in terms of career numbers, I can see him not necessarily breaking it, because I think he's a guy who's 3 and done. And so Restrepo was a guy
first round draft pick.
Exactly, right. And Restrepo was a guy who had to stay because he didn't have, that draft buzz, and a guy who ended up obviously not being drafted. So it just depends on how you want to look at that, right? I think the single season deal, I think Tony will probably end up owning just about everything when it comes to single season type numbers. I think in terms of a career, I think Restrepo probably still ends up in the league just based on he'll have played more games, if that makes sense. But we'll see. And listen, when you start talking about breaking records, man, hey, it doesn't matter which record's being broken, man. You're doing well, right?
Yeah.
So we move on to the offensive line, man. And again, how I started is, I'm not going to use the word concerned, and I'm not going to use the word concerned because of who we have as a head coach and who we have as an offensive line coach, right? These guys have famously said, like Mirabal said, I will chop off my arms and legs before this offensive line is not a position of strength at the University of Miami, right? And I believe that, right? That's some psycho ass shit to say, but like he truly believes it, right? And so listen, they've recruited I love that, dude. Listen. I'm here for it, right? They've another room that is layered the right way, and where I think right now, when you look at the way, and we'll talk about it all the time, when you look at all your position groups, talent, depth, experience, right? And I think when you look at offensive line, I think there's depth, right? I think there's talent, I think there's depth. I think we lack a little bit of experience in that room, and so. To me, when I'm looking at the room and who your starting 5 is going to be and who the backups are going to be, obviously there isn't the proven production that there was last year with that starting 5. So concerned, again, I'm not going to use the word concerned because Cristobal and Mirabal are there, but I'm a little bit weary of who the starting 5 is going to be and how that's going to look in terms of cohesion, in terms of, protecting Darian Mensah, what's a running game going to look like, all that kind of, right? So I'm looking to see what is their strength going to be? Is their strength going to be running the ball? Is their strength going to be pass protection? I'm just really curious because there's a lot of questions that have to be answered in terms of really you just have to start with who's going to be the starting 5, right? And then after that, you go with, okay, what are they going to look like? But I think there's more questions with this position group than any other position group really, really on the team, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Adrian.
I'm not concerned about the O-line, but I will say this. I don't care who you put out there. Run block, do your job in the run game. You don't even got to be the best pass protection unit in college just because of who you have at quarterback. But please, 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 please be disciplined, man. Can we just be disciplined? Them penalties absolutely killed us last year. And
So
I mean,
maddening.
it was bad, man. And
Maddening.
like
So
multiple
annoying.
on critical drives in the game. And it's like, come on, man. That's all I'm worried about. And I'm not worried. So I just want a disciplined offensive line this year.
Absolutely.
Get it together. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, they're total drive killers. Even in the playoffs, they were drive killers as well. Like you can't false stars and stuff like that, and you know that's kind of like the bugaboo that those are disciplinary type of infractions. So that's the main issue. But I was talking to Q about this last week, and I do think that this offensive line kind of reminds me a little bit, not entirely, but does remind me of the 2023 team in which you had a true freshman starting at right tackle. As well, you don't have that experience at center because I think the prognosis is going to be that Ryan Rodriguez is going to start. I don't know that's official. I know that Max Buchanan might want to push him a little bit, so we'll see how that happens there. But you are going to have an inexperienced line, but it's still going to be a very talented offensive line. I do expect that to happen. So again, also, I brought back some bad memories with Q. That team should have won 10 games that year, but we had a quarterback that couldn't read his own defense and threw us out of games on several occasions. So that was a big problem. It should not have been a 7-win team. All right, it should have been at least a 10-win team. So I don't think that Darian Mensah is going to throw us out of games this season. So I still expect the line to be good. I mean, it's gonna be some growing pains, but I do think the schedule lets itself for us to kind of work through it. Because you play sorry Stanford at the start of the season. I expect Miami to dominate that game, and you play Central Michigan. I think you play FAMU in between as well. Correct? Is that correct, Q?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah,
So.
you play FAMU. So really don't have like a tough game until like you really get up to Clemson or Florida State. Yeah, so I really have a tough game. So I do think this line will kind of like work out its kinks in those few games before we get into really heavy ACC competition. I would have been more concerned if we were starting with Notre Dame this year, right in South Bend, straight away. That would have been a problem, but we're not. We're starting with Stanford, and then it's kind of like some practice games and stuff like that, and then you take on the Clemsons, you take on the Florida States, and you take on the Notre Dame. So I think by that time our line will be more squared away. Go ahead. What happened?
I said confidence builders.
Yeah,
exactly. Listen, you never want to use it.
Brett Roberts used to call them technique games.
There you go. Right, that's a good way to put them. So if you look at the schedule, man, obviously a way different schedule than last year, and I mean we'll touch on it real quick. Obviously, to start off, you're at Stanford to kick the season off Friday, September 4th.
Okay.
Follow that one up with Florida A&M. Thursday, September 10th. Friday, September 18th, you're at Wake. Right, so not too terribly worried about that one. Then you come home to face Central Michigan before you go to Clemson. So I think it's a 4-game slate to start the season that I think affords you the time for this line to get right, to get where it needs to be, bully some people, experience some success, when it comes to mauling people and establishing a run game and everything like that, and so hopefully. When October 3rd comes around, you open up. They will have already played Wake Forest, so they and Stanford. I'm sorry, so they already have 2 ACC games under their belt. Then you go to Clemson, and hopefully you go there, on 4-0 and go there ready to run those clowns over. So we'll see how it goes, man. But again, that's what I go back to. Not worried. I'm not worried, right? Because again, I don't think there's any reason to be. It's just the lack of established, starters, right? You're really not bringing back anybody, from last year that started truly. Right now, Samson played, a bunch of snaps, right? Matt McCoy played, a bunch of snaps, but they weren't guys, who started. So, we'll see how it goes. Ryan Rodriguez, right, was hurt a lot of last year, right? You're going to have, by all accounts, Jackson Cantwell, who they're saying is he's not in there in Sharpie, but essentially he's penciled in there as a starter at possibly right tackle. But we'll see. it's again, it's a position where you're going to have 5 new starters essentially, and I think to me that's always at the very least something to keep an eye on, right? I don't say worrisome, but you definitely want to keep your eye on that because again, I just think it's a situation that isn't ideal. But again, you have some experience. There's definitely talent, and we know that they're well coached. That for sure we know of, right? We know that if nothing else, it's a group that is probably gonna play above their recruiting rankings because of the talent and the instruction that they're getting from Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal.
That's what spring's for. That's what our defensive line is for, to help them get that work in. So
100%.
I think they'll be fine. Just the discipline, man. Young guys, you always got to worry about discipline.
Yeah. You want to make sure, and obviously, man, again, technique comes into play, right, and the whole deal. But again, man, these are guys that, again, if nothing else, man, they're going to be well coached, right, and you trust the eye and you trust the the evaluations from those guys, right? Every once in a while, they take in a guy, you're like, who the hell, and those guys end up working out because they know what they're looking at, they know what they're looking for. They know what traits they like in guys, and even guys who aren't super highly recruited are guys that are going to be well coached and probably develop into some really useful offensive linemen. So again, we'll see where the position group goes. But again, I definitely, I'm not worried. I'm just, again, we bring back the 2 most important guys for us at that particular position, which are the coaches. And again, man, they're just the talent surrounding them. I think is just going to be, it's just going to be ridiculous. And obviously, it all culminates with really the most important position in sports, right? And you look at the quarterback room, and again, man, Darian Mensah, right? A guy who I would have never guessed, was going to be a part of this team. And as the offseason kind of went forward, and we're seeing all these names come off the board. I don't know about you guys, man, but I'm sitting there going, so what are we doing, right? What are we doing, right? Because you start to see Brendan Thorsby come off the board, Sam Levitt come off the board. Yeah. You're seeing all these names, committing, and you're like, what the hell's Miami doing, right? I mean, what's going on, right? And then all of a sudden, Darian Mensah's name pops up, and I'm like, man, how? I know he was pretty good last year, right? But then you start to look, you get deeper into the weeds when you're looking at the numbers and the tape, and you're going, yes, you're going, yes, right? And so, listen, man, I think by all accounts, man, a home run, right? He's a guy who, again, we talked about the numbers at the beginning of the show. The guy who was, second in the country in passing yards, who was second in passing touchdowns, right? A guy who I think when you're looking at the comparisons, I mean, you can't help but say Cam Ward, and I know that may be, obviously that's slightly blasphemous, right? But when you're looking at the skill set, when you're looking at the ability, I think a lot of similarities, man. A lot of similarities with Cam Ward.
Bigger Cam Ward.
Yeah. He also, I think, may have a better touch on the deep ball than Ward. Okay, because Ward had a zip, to his deep ball, and I think Mensah has a little bit more touch if you look at the arch, the way he delivers it. So I'm really, really, truly excited about this. Again, on paper, this team can go 12-0. Oh, I mean, it's like I can't see, like, you don't have SMU on the schedule. You don't have Georgia Tech on the schedule. You don't have Louisville on the schedule either, all right, as well. So I'm, on paper, I always say on paper because, you always get those games, but Miami should go 12-0. All right, I think Miami, or at least 11-1. I mean, you got to give Notre Dame their props, and stuff like that to some extent. But I still think we go to South Bend and beat them. All right, I think that we could beat Notre Dame in South Bend, right, as well. It's not gonna be that cold over there when we're over there. So I do think it's gonna be a very fun game. And this time around, CJ Carr is not gonna be sneaky fast like he was in that first game that we thought he was a statue, and he was able to kind of move the ball over with his legs. Now they'll be ready for his legs, right, as well. So so it should be a fun season.
Yeah, man. Look, like when AD mentioned earlier, man, is listen, having him there for spring is going to be huge, right? And when you're looking at, trying to get a guy, worked into the offense, getting him familiar with all the new faces and everything like that, the spring is so important, man. And for Carson Beck, having been there last year, he was there, physically, getting the mental reps. But at the end of the day, man, there's no substitute for being out there getting those live reps with your guys, right? And so, Darian Mensah is going to have that, is going to have the benefit of the spring. He's going to have the benefit of being there from day one. I would imagine that they were already, throwing, they're having throwing sessions and they're all getting together. And
he's already down here, ain't he?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's been before he ever officially signed.
He been to games and everything.
Yeah, he was already down there working out and everything like that. So
hey, once they got that ruling, he flew right down here right after that.
Well, no, and it was even before that. It was even before that. Like before he ever officially committed, and before the ruling ever went in his favor, he was already down there because some of the
even better
stuff that I listened to and everything. And then the pictures coming out like on Twitter and the whole deal, like he had already been down there. He had already been, meeting with the receivers. He had already been throwing and everything like that. So it was essentially, just a technicality, right? It was everything just kind of getting cleared up, to make things official, right? And so, again, man, being there for the spring, and working with those guys, man, and getting familiar with the offensive line and the whole deal. And so, man, I just think it's such a huge benefit. This is a guy who, again, it was a big deal because the outrage from around the country was ridiculous. Everybody was like, how can they do this? And
everybody hates Miami.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved how everybody was mad. It absolutely made my heart smile. Right. And so, that just tells you what kind of move it was, man. That kind of tells you, how big a deal this was, where everybody is butthurt about it, right? Never mind that all these other dudes, all these other, quarterbacks are landing at programs and getting paid a bunch of money.
That Breaking Bad meme. He can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah, with Pinkman, with Jesse Pinkman. Right? I loved it.
Yeah. My comments were hilarious, man, when I did the Darian Mensah special. And so on. My comments were hilarious. One guy's like, you guys should be ashamed of yourselves. I'm glad you lost the national championship. And I wrote back, I'm sure Tulane felt the same way.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys forget that Duke literally did the same thing? Do you guys forget that Duke literally did the same thing a year ago? Like the transfer portal was like 10 minutes old. Mm-hmm. They were announcing Darian Mensah committed. So I'm sure that was all done perfectly legal. Yeah. Right. I'm sure that was no tampering. Right. I'm sure that was all done totally on the up and up. Right. Because again, right. Miami is the only one that tampered. Yeah. Right. I mean, we know this has been proven. Right. And so
the
just
thing
makes
is,
me
you
laugh.
and Adrian is that the loop. Yeah. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, you're good, brother. You're good.
No, I'm sorry because you're kind of cutting off a little bit, so I sometimes know when you're talking. Forgive me about that. But what I was going to tell you is that the loophole for this is huge because from what I understand, as long as they don't talk to the actual coaches, it's not really tampering because and nowadays collectives talk to each other, and they talk to the agent. So that's how a lot of these deals are even brokered and being done. Like someone from the collective, if they're a big time alumni, will call the agent, hey, listen, Miami's looking for a quarterback. So are you sure he wants to wants to stay with Duke and oh, well, let me see what he thinks. And then, I'm out. That's pretty much how a lot of this stuff goes on. It's not like they're directly talking to coaches. They're talking to the alumni who are donating money to the schools because now all these guys have agents. Before that wasn't the case. If you got an agent, you're looking at a 4-game suspension, for yourself. That's not the case anymore. So I think that's kind of like what happens behind the scenes is that Mensah may or may not, I don't know, got a call from somebody from the collective. They spoke to each other. And that's how they kind of got the deal done. That's why Miami can't really get nailed with tampering. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
And there again, right? And I think it's just one of those rules that I think if you're not familiar with the process, I think that's where you're getting all this commentary and people getting butthurt and the whole deal. Because clearly we know Mario Cristobal isn't picking up his phone and going, hey, Darian, he's not hitting him up from his phone, right? Yeah, exactly. Like AD saying, right? Just listen, man, it's Miami, so people are gonna whine and complain. It's Miami, so people are gonna, throw out allegations and the conspiracy theories and Miami's doing this and the third. Everybody's doing it, man.
Yeah.
Everybody, they're not doing anything that everybody else. You think LSU's doing everything, on the up and up? You think Texas Tech is? You think come on, man. Let's stop telling stories. Let's stop telling lies. Like, people know what's going on out there. The problem is, for some reason, they want to throw shade at Miami, but everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it. Yeah. So again, the quicker people, come to grips with this, the easier it's going to be, right? And it's just as simple as, again, I can't remember who it was that said it a while ago. Man, listen, big bank takes little bank, and it's always going to be that way. It's always going to be that way. And I'm sorry, man. Look, I get Duke won the ACC last year. Listen, good for them. But let's not compare programs. And listen, good for Manny Diaz, right? That he went over there and did his thing. Listen, I'm not mad at him.
Thank you, Manny.
Yeah. I'm not one of these guys who hates on Manny Diaz or anything. I have no ill will towards a guy. Listen, man,
he's the gift that keeps on giving, bro.
Exactly. So, but also, can't be mad at him. I appreciate the gift, man. Thanks for the care package. You know what I mean? Like, we'll take it from here. We'll take it from here. And Saturday, November 14th, you get to show us how mad you are.
Yes.
Saturday, November 14th, you get to show us that how truly mad are you. If you don't like it, you know what? You get to shut them up. You get a chance to shut them up on November 14th. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But at the end of the day, man, you got to be comfortable with this happening, and because it happens to damn near everybody. It's how it goes. Yeah. Like, you either go out and get, or you get got. Like, it's one or the other. And
it's the new college football, man.
That's it, man. Yeah. That's it. And listen, as like, I hear people talking about, oh my God, this needs to change, and we listen. Yeah, I guess, but at the end of the day, for a program like Miami and what they're doing under these rules and these circumstances, like, I'm not somebody who wants it to change. Like, if I'm being honest. Because they're thriving in this space. Like, why would I want it to change? Right. So I get that people want change, but at the end of the day, like, if it doesn't change,
it won't change. It's adding too much parity in the league.
Yeah. So
college football.
I think some things probably
making it
have
better,
to change.
Really.
Yeah. I think some things probably have to change. Right. I just think that, I think the money at some point, they're going to have to cap it. Right. And I think at some point they're going to have to.
Oh, they will.
Yeah. Right. So I think that's coming. But at the end of the day, if you're a fan of a program that is thriving in this space, why would you want it to change? Right? It's tailor made for a guy like Mario, who is a maniac on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
Right. Who's good in the portal. Right. There was 6 teams that landed top 15 recruiting classes and top 15 portal classes. Miami was one of them. Right. So if these are the circumstances that you're working under and they're thriving in, why would you want it to change? Just let it be the Wild West, and it's sink or swim, right? Yeah. It's survive or don't survive, bro. That's the name of the game. And Mario is surviving, and Mario's thriving. So at the end of the day, if that's happening, then why would I want the rules to change?
Yeah, the national championship had really good numbers. First things foremost, and number two, a lot of people argue that the national championship game was even better than the Super Bowl, right? As well, and you can make the case even last year's game as well was even better than the Super Bowl. So I mean, it's something's working.
The numbers are there. The numbers are there. Was the most watched football game in like 8 or 9 years or something like that, I think is what I saw. And on top of that, like, you look at in terms of like competitiveness, dude, there's no question, there's no argument that it was a way better game.
Went down to the final minute.
Yeah. There's no debating that. It was a way better game than the Super Bowl was. Right. And again, I get college football still by and large, in a lot of instances, is a regional product. But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at the viewership, people liked what was on the field. You had Miami, you had Indiana, obviously Indiana with a huge student body, population and the whole deal. Miami playing at home, I think the brand obviously matters and everything. So I think both things contributed to the numbers being high. But if you're looking at championship game to championship game, the national title game was a way better product than the Super Bowl was.
I didn't even watch the second half of the Super Bowl. I just ate. That was background noise at that point. That game sucked, bro.
Yeah, man. Like, as a Niners fan, I hated that Seattle won. But even with that being the case, like, I would have been way more tuned in if it was a better game. It just, the Patriots.
As a Dolphin fan, got outplayed. I'm glad the Patriots got
I
their
can see
ass
it.
whooped. So.
I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Like
Beautiful.
I get as a Dolphins fan, I get how you wouldn't want the Patriots to win. My brother's a Bills fan. He was rooting for Seattle. You know, I just because I hate Seattle. Like and not only that, I hate Seattle, and then they won the Super Bowl in Levi Stadium, which hurt even more. So
with the quarterback that you guys had,
with a
right?
quarterback that was there, right? And so you know, again, man, for several reasons, it's the game I hate it, but you know, such is life, man. You know, the only thing like I said to people when they asked me was like, listen, hopefully this is, you know, not to get too far off topic, but I was like, listen, man, as a Niner fan, I hope this is hopefully something that lights a fire under their ass, and they get it together. They make the necessary moves and the necessary changes to be able to compete and hopefully win it next year. So again, you really hope that's what ends up coming from all this, because otherwise Seattle can kiss my ass.
Love it.
Yeah, not sorry.
True fan.
Not sorry, man. I'm not sorry in the least.
Real.
I cannot stand Seattle, man. But you know, they did their thing, man. Listen, that's you draft well, develop, don't give out bad free agent contracts. There's a result.
Yeah,
right there. And they won it, man. But, you know, that's how it goes.
That was a defensive clinic too, man. That was a defensive.
No,
clinic.
the defense, man. Listen, the defense as the season went on, they got better, and you know, they just listen, man. I think New England was early. I think we're being honest, right? They took advantage of a really weak schedule.
Their defense was ready. Their offense was
their offense couldn't do anything. They literally could not get open. You know, and again, it was kind of the same thing. If you look at it, the way that offense. You know, when obviously it was a closer game with Miami, but listen, man, that just goes to show you, if you don't have receivers that are difference makers, listen, nobody could get open in New England. Stephon Diggs couldn't get open. Demario Douglas couldn't get open. Dude, none of those guys could get open.
Booty.
Right? And, yeah, Booty couldn't get open. Like, dude, nobody.
Booty.
Yeah, Booty, because he's from Louisiana. But they couldn't get open, man. They couldn't get open. It just Drake May had nobody to throw to. He had no time. He was getting eaten alive. That offensive line got destroyed. You know, and so again, man, that just goes to show you. Listen, man, they were early. I think they were early in their development, because nobody expected the Patriots to be there. So, you know, again, man, you know, I'm sure they got to be excited for the future. But yeah, they were just outmatched. They were outmatched. So, but yeah, man. The again, I think you know, like we talked about at the you know, to start the show, man. I think the 2026 Miami Hurricanes offense, man, I think is a unit that again, man, I hate, you know, the hyperbole, and I hate, oh man, they're going to be, but listen, man, this offense this year in 2025 for Miami, they put up like 31 points a game, and they made a national
manifesting 52 points,
dude,
this year.
Listen, if it's 52 points, man, look, forget about it. Like the defense can just basically halfway show up and they'll be fine, right? But
take the night off.
Yeah. Listen, 52 points a game, man. That would be absolutely insane. But again, man, it's a unit that I'm really, really, truly excited for. I think Shannon Dawson will be, you know, back in his bag, you know, again this upcoming season. And I think they're going to be a headache, man. I think this offense is going to be a headache for a lot of people, you know, come 2026.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, definitely. I really do think so as well.
Yeah, man. So listen, we'll line up a day, man, for next week, and we'll do part 3 of this thing, man. But you guys don't have anything else, man, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, man. Defense next, right?
Defense next, man. Yeah, part 3. We'll definitely talk defense. You know,
front 4, baby.
A unit, yeah, man. A unit that should be good again, man. We're definitely looking right on that side of the ball again for next year, man.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, fellas. Appreciate you guys getting with me, man. Enjoyed it as always, bro. We like I said, man, we'll get together for we'll figure out a day for next week, man. But for my boy Will, for my boy AD, do us a favor, man. Like and subscribe to the shows, man. Rainy Day Pod. 305 Sports Now podcast. Everybody on FTSN, man, check out all the guys. Lou from Dade and his bride Ashley, man. We got Bobby Finstock, you know, everybody on the networks, man, putting out some really good content out there, man. So check us out on there, man. Like and subscribe. And until next week, y'all take it easy. Peace.
Birds.
Okay.
Yeah, boys.